My name is Elena Pierce, and when I was 16, I thought I had everything figured out. I wasn't popular, but I wasn't invisible either. I had good grades, a small circle of friends, and a part-time job at the local bakery to save money for university. My world was simple, untouched. And then he entered it. His name was Lucas Reed. Handsome, charming, captain of the swim team, adored by teachers, worshipped by students. If life was a chessboard, Lucas was the king. I was just a pawn. One he thought he could use and walk away from without consequences. I didn't know that the day he started talking to me, really talking, my entire life was about to collapse like a house of cards. He approached me one rainy afternoon in the school library. I still remember how his wet hair dripped on the desk as he leaned over and said, "Hey, aren't you the girl who tutors math? I think I need your help." I should have known something was off. Lucas Reed didn't need tutoring. He had straight A's. But I was 16, flattered, naive, and worst of all, hungry for the kind of attention only boys like Lucas knew how to give. We met every Tuesday after school. At first, he was polite, respectful, interested in every word I said. Then the compliments began. "You're actually really funny. Your eyes do this pretty thing when you think. I don't feel like I can talk to anyone like I talk to you." And little by little, he dug inside my chest and wrapped his fingers around my heart. 2 months later, he made it official. On the bleachers behind the stadium, he kissed me, my first real kiss, and whispered, "I like you more than I should." I thought it was the beginning of my first love story. Turns out, it was the start of my first war. The first sign came quietly, like a spider crawling across my skin. A girl from my chemistry class whispered when I passed by. 2 boys snickered as I opened my locker. Teachers looked at me a little too long. At first, I didn't understand. Then my best friend, Naomi, pulled me aside in the hallway, eyes wide with horror. "Elena, someone started a rumor about you." "What rumor?" She swallowed hard. "That you slept with Lucas. In the locker room. And that the janitor saw." My blood turned to ice. "What? That's not even. We've never, Naomi, that never happened." "I know," she said. "But Elena, the entire school is talking about it." I felt sick, humiliated, confused. I confronted Lucas that same day behind the bleachers, the same place he'd kissed me like I was something rare. "Lucas, someone said we did things in the locker room. Did you tell someone?" He ran a hand through his hair, avoiding my eyes. "Look, I might have said something stupid to the guys. They kept teasing me about liking you. So you made up a whole story." He shrugged. "I didn't think it would get this big. People exaggerate, you know." He grinned. Like it was funny. Like destroying a girl's name was a joke. Something inside me cracked. Something small. Something quiet. But something deadly. I didn't know then that I would spend the next year being called names I wouldn't wish on anyone. Or that Lucas Reed would walk away untouchable, his reputation shining like polished gold. But I also didn't know this. No kingdom is immune to fire. When you teach the wrong girl how to burn, rumors don't stay still. They grow legs. Fangs. The more I denied it, the more people believed it. Girls whispered that I was trying to trap Lucas. Boys asked me disgusting questions in the cafeteria. The janitor, an old man who barely knew English, was dragged into it, forced to deny a lie he had no part in. I stopped eating at school. Stopped talking. Stopped sleeping. My mom begged me to tell her what was wrong, but how could I explain that a single boy's careless words had turned my life into a circus? I finally broke down 3 weeks later, crying into Naomi's hoodie in the bathroom stall as she held me. "He ruined everything," I whispered. "And he doesn't even care." She hugged me tighter. "Elena, you know you don't deserve this, right? I know, I choked. But so does he. That's when the spark inside me, the one Lucas had cracked, finally caught fire. I wasn't going to confront him again. I wasn't going to beg him to fix what he broke. I was going to destroy him. Not with gossip. Not with a rumor. With something far more powerful. Truth. Revenge isn't born loud. It starts soft. Silent. Cold. First, I observed Lucas. Every move. Every habit. Every weakness. He seemed perfect, but perfection itself is the easiest thing to crack. His parents were wealthy, too wealthy. His father ran a construction company. His mother was on the school board. Lucas had power because his parents had power. But power creates shadows. Shadows create secrets. And secrets are where revenge begins. One afternoon, months after the rumor had nearly destroyed me, I passed by Lucas's classroom after school. He wasn't inside, but his backpack was open. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. Inside was a folder labeled Pierce, Behavior Concerns. My blood froze. Inside were printed copies of emails, fake emails, sent from someone impersonating my mother, claiming I had mental health issues, violent tendencies, emotional instability. Lucas hadn't just spread a rumor. He had been building a file. A record. A reason for the school to distrust me. A reason for teachers to believe anything he said about me. And suddenly, everything clicked. Why the school counselor kept checking on me. Why teachers treated me like a problem. Why the principal once asked if everything was okay at home. Lucas hadn't ruined me by accident. He had done it deliberately. And that's when my revenge plan evolved into something far bigger than payback. I wasn't just going to expose him. I was going to collapse his entire kingdom on top of him. Brick by brick. Secret by secret. Lie by lie. I didn't touch the folder. I didn't take anything from his bag. I didn't need to. Just seeing it was enough to confirm something terrifying. Lucas Reed wasn't careless. He was calculated. He was dangerous. He had fabricated emails, forged documents, planted lies, all to destroy me, the girl he had kissed behind the bleachers like I was something precious. I walked out of that classroom with shaking hands and a decision that tasted like steel in my mouth. He wanted a war. He picked the wrong girl. The next weeks were the quietest of my life. Quiet on the outside, but inside, a storm. I became a different person. While Lucas laughed in the hallways, bragged to his friends, and lived as if nothing had consequences, I studied him. Not like a crush. Like an enemy. When he left school, I watched where he went. When he spoke, I listened between the lines. When he slipped, I took notes. I became invisible, not because I was weak, but because invisibility is the most powerful weapon the underestimated possess. And Lucas. He loved underestimating me. One day, I followed him farther than usual, past the school gates, across the field, down the street toward the industrial district. He entered his father's construction office. It was a small building, nothing fancy. Yet Lucas carried himself like royalty walking into a palace. He didn't know I was watching from across the street. He didn't know I saw everything. He didn't know the cracks in his perfect life were right there, in plain sight. Harold Reed, his father, was a man everyone in town respected. A businessman. A donor. A community figure. But as I watched from my hiding place, something felt off. He barked orders. He slammed papers. Workers flinched when he walked by. And then, Lucas entered his father's office. Through the tinted window, I saw silhouettes. Lucas lifted a folder. His father snatched it out of his hands, yelling. Even from across the street, I could hear the muffled fury. Lucas recoiled, not with fear, but resignation. And that's when it hit me. Lucas Reed was a bully. Because he was being raised by one. A very specific kind of bully. The kind who believes appearances are everything. The kind who believes failure is shameful. And the worst kind of all. The kind who will do anything to protect a spotless reputation. My heart pounded with a new kind of clarity. Lucas didn't ruin my life because he hated me. He ruined my life because he was terrified of seeming weak. Terrified of being seen caring about someone like me. And that fear. That was the weakness I needed. I spent 3 afternoons observing the reeds. Nothing dramatic happened at first. But on Thursday, everything changed. As I hid behind the tall hedges across the street, Harold stormed out of his office, yelling at his assistant. "Tell accounting this better get fixed. If they find out, the contracts will be revoked." Contracts. Fixed. Revoked. My ears perked up. Harold grabbed the assistant by the arm, snarling. "And make sure no one leaks a damn thing. I don't need inspectors snooping around." The assistant nodded frantically. Harold's voice was sharp and clear. "One slip, and everything collapses. Everything collapses. Everything." I froze. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about a teenage boy lying. This was about his father's empire balancing on a secret. A big one. A dangerous one. And I had just found my opening. That night, I didn't sleep. I researched construction company scandals, building code violations, fake permits, insurance fraud, under the table labor. The possibilities were endless. But I needed specifics. And specifics always hide in public documents. So I went to the place where secrets are accidentally stored in plain sight. The city planning office. I walked in the next afternoon pretending I needed information for a school project. The clerk was more bored than suspicious. I asked about Harold Reed's company, if I could see permit filings, inspection dates, anything. He placed 2 boxes on the counter. "Just put everything back when you're done." I opened the first folder. And there it was. A missing signature. A fake inspection stamp. A permit approved on a date the inspector was recorded as being out of town. 1 inconsistency. 2 inconsistencies. Then 3. Then 10. Harold Reed wasn't just bending the rules. He had been breaking the law. For years. My breath caught in my throat. This was bigger than revenge. This was justice marinated in gasoline. And in the center of it all, the shining golden sun who walked around like he owned the world. Lucas Reed. The boy who forged emails to ruin my life. The boy who lied about me. The boy who smiled while I fell apart. He didn't know it yet. But his father's corruption would become the match that lit the fire under his kingdom. Now I had information. But information alone doesn't destroy a king. You need timing. You need precision. You need theater. I spent 2 weeks preparing. 2 weeks collecting screenshots, copies, phone recordings, public documents, anonymous statements from workers who hadn't been paid properly. Piece by piece, I built a case. Not just against Harold, but against Lucas too. Because as I dug deeper, I found something chilling. Lucas had been helping his father. Forging signatures, editing documents, sending threatening emails to employees who complained about safety conditions. The boy who ruined my life wasn't just cruel. He was complicit. And that meant when Harold's world fell, Lucas would fall with him. I didn't want to hurt him physically. I didn't want to hurt him emotionally. I wanted to hurt him in the one way people like Lucas feel pain. By destroying their reputation, their power, their legacy, the same way he destroyed mine. The school's biggest annual event, Honor Assembly, was coming up. Parents, students, teachers, local officials. Everyone would be there. Lucas was scheduled to receive the Student Leadership Award. The irony made me sick. But the timing made it perfect. Because what's the point of taking down a king if the entire kingdom isn't there to watch? The week leading up to the honor assembly felt like living inside a pressure cooker. Every morning I woke up with adrenaline humming in my veins. Every night I lay awake rehearsing every step of the plan. Every time I saw Lucas, smiling his golden boy smile, my resolve tightened. He had no idea. Not a whisper. Not a suspicion. Not the faintest clue that the ground beneath him was cracking like ice in spring. And for the first time in months, I felt powerful. I created a folder on my laptop labeled School Project, Do Not Delete. Inside it, I placed everything. Screenshots of forged emails, copies of falsified building permits, audio of workers discussing safety violations. Harold Reed's public records with mismatched dates. Lucas's own digital fingerprints on several, adjusted, documents. A timeline connecting all corruption back to the Reed family. The more evidence I gathered, the less I felt like a victim. And the more I felt like a prosecutor preparing the trial of the century. But the real masterpiece. A 10-minute video presentation. It was clean, professional, undeniable. No narration. No accusations. Just facts. Dates. Signatures. Stamps. Documents flashing side by side. A silent avalanche of truth. I titled the file, Integrity Award Presentation, and placed it on a USB drive shaped like a golden key. Symbolism mattered. Rain hammered against my window as I sat cross-legged on the floor, USB drive in my hand, heart beating a nervous rhythm. Naomi sat beside me, leaning against my bed. Elena, this is huge, she whispered. Are you sure? I nodded. This isn't just about me anymore, I said quietly. He did this to other people too. His father is hurting families. Workers. The whole community. Naomi sighed. I'm proud of you, she said. But, aren't you scared? I stared at the USB drive. I was scared for months. Scared of rumors. Scared of being judged. Scared of being alone. Now, I'm done being scared. I slipped the drive into my backpack. Tomorrow, I whispered, the Reeds see what fear really feels like. The auditorium was packed. Parents in stiff blazers. Teachers in their nicest clothes. Students buzzing with excitement. The honor assembly was the biggest event of the year, the place where model students were celebrated and the administration congratulated itself for raising future leaders. Lucas sat in the front row, beaming. His mother fussed over his collar. His father sat tall, proud, self-assured. Arrogance dripped off them like expensive cologne. I slipped into a seat in the middle row, Naomi gripping my arm. You ready? She whispered. No, I whispered back. But I'm doing it anyway. The principal listed off awards, clapping politely after each one. Then he reached the final category. Student Leadership Award. This was Lucas's crown. His moment. His throne. Please. Welcome, the principal announced. Our shining example of integrity and leadership, Lucas Reed. The crowd erupted in applause. He rose gracefully, smiling like a prince stepping forward to claim his kingdom. But before he reached the stage, I stood up. Naomi's hand tightened on mine. Elena, I have to. I walked straight down the aisle. Every eye followed me. Whispers rose like smoke. The principal blinked in confusion. Elena, can this wait? No, I said. My voice didn't shake. Not even a little. This is about integrity. And the truth. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Lucas froze on the stairs, hand gripping the railing. Elena, he muttered, jaw tightening. Sit down. No. My voice echoed through the auditorium. I pulled the USB drive from my pocket and held it up. I have something to show the school. The principal frowned. Miss Pierce, this is highly irregular. Integrity, I repeated. The award you're giving him is based on a lie. The entire room buzzed. Lucas's father stood abruptly. That's enough, he barked. This is harassment. I turned to face him. Mr. Reed, you might want to sit for this. I walked to the podium and plugged the USB drive into the laptop connected to the projector. The screen lit up behind me. And then, slide by slide, evidence filled the wall. Stamped permits with mismatched dates. Inspection records that didn't exist. Forged emails sent from Lucas's account. Side-by-side documents showing identical handwriting where signatures should have differed. A worker speaking about being underpaid. A safety hazard ignored. A building approved illegally. All tied back to Reed Construction. And its golden child, Lucas. The room was dead silent. Not a whisper. Not a breath. I didn't speak during the video. I let the truth speak for itself. Lucas stood frozen, face pale. His father's jaw clenched so tight a vein throbbed in his temple. His mother covered her mouth, eyes wide with horror. The principal staggered back like he'd been punched. Naomi watched the screen with trembling hands. And me, I felt calm. Calmer than I'd felt in a long, long time. The video ended on a single sentence. Integrity is not inherited. It is earned. Silence. Thunderous, suffocating silence. Then, all of this is fake. Harold Reed shouted, stepping forward. Prove it, I said, turning to him. My voice like ice. You can't fake public records. You can't fake state-issued permits. You can't fake that your son used the school's IP address to forge emails from my mother. Gasps. Teachers stared. Students leaned forward. And Lucas. He took a step toward me. You don't know what you've done, he hissed. This will ruin my life. I looked into his eyes, the same eyes that once looked at me with tenderness before spitting venom into my world. And I said, you ruined mine first. Harold grabbed Lucas by the arm. We're leaving. Now. But it was too late. Teachers crowded the stage. The principal demanded explanations. Parents murmured. Phones were already recording. Students whispered every rumor that would now never die. Lucas tried to speak, to argue, to deny. But lies dissolve under the weight of truth. His father shoved through the crowd, dragging Lucas, shouting at anyone who got in his way. His mother sobbed as she followed. And just like that, the Reeds fled their kingdom. The auditorium buzzed like a kicked beehive. And I walked off the stage. My knees were weak. But my heart had never felt stronger. The moment the Reeds burst out of the auditorium doors, chaos erupted behind them. Teachers rushed to the principal. Parents whispered viciously. Students pulled out their phones like they were watching the finale of a drama series. I walked back to my seat slowly, breathing deeply, every step feeling unreal, like walking on a stage one never meant to stand on. Naomi grabbed my hand. Elena, you actually did it. No, I whispered. He did it. I just showed everyone. For the first time since Lucas had destroyed my reputation, I felt something warm filling my chest. Relief. The kind that tastes like freedom. But it wasn't over yet. Not even close. By the next morning, the story had spread like wildfire. Parents called the school nonstop. Workers from Reed Construction began anonymously posting their experiences online. Local journalists sniffed around for information. Students whispered in every hallway. For the first time, people looked at me not with pity, but with respect. Not everyone was kind, of course. Some thought I'd gone too far. Some said I should have told a teacher privately. But most, they knew the truth. The Reeds had built an empire on lies. And I had simply pulled the curtain. 3 days later, the principal called an assembly, this time without awards, speeches, or music. Just solemnity. He stood at the podium and cleared his throat. It has come to our attention, he began, that a student and his family have been involved in serious misconduct involving forgery of school-related documents, falsification of records, and behavior that has threatened the safety of our students. Everyone knew who he meant. Effective immediately. Lucas Reed is suspended pending the results of the investigation. A wave of whispers spread across the auditorium like ripples on water. I sat perfectly still. Naomi squeezed my hand again. He deserves this, she whispered. I nodded. But punishment alone wasn't the end. There was still the truth that had been carved into my name, and that needed to be undone. Later that afternoon, I was called to the counselor's office. For the first time, she didn't look suspicious, or patronizing, or skeptical. She looked ashamed. Elena, she said quietly, I owe you an apology. For what? I asked softly. She sighed. When we received those emails from someone pretending to be your mother, we were concerned. But we should have verified them. We should have asked you directly. I folded my hands in my lap. It's okay, I whispered. But inside, I knew it wasn't. The counselor continued. We have removed all the falsified notes from your file. Your academic record is clear again. And Elena, we're opening an investigation into what's happened to you. Your courage helped uncover something much bigger than we realized. I nodded politely, but the weight in my chest didn't ease. Because there was one more thing that needed to happen. I needed to see Lucas. Face to face. Not to fight. Not to scream. Not to gloat. Just to finish it. I found him behind the gym after school, the place where everything had started. His once perfect hair was a mess. His clothes were wrinkled. His eyes were bloodshot, like he hadn't slept in days. He wasn't surrounded by friends. He wasn't laughing. He was alone. He looked up when he heard footsteps. Elena, he breathed. I stopped a few feet away. You ruined me, he said weakly. A long silence stretched between us, heavy as gravity. You ruined me first, I said quietly. And I didn't ruin you. I exposed you. He clenched his jaw. You could have talked to me. You could have forgiven me. I shook my head slowly. Lucas, you didn't make a mistake. You made a decision. You lied. You forged things. You tried to destroy me. He swallowed, looking away. My dad made me help him, he muttered. I didn't have a choice. I stepped closer. You always had a choice, I said softly. Hurting me wasn't your father's idea. That was all you. He flinched, because he knew it was true. For the first time, I saw what Lucas looked like without the golden glow of privilege around him. Just a boy, broken, scared, lost in a world he thought he could control. A boy who created monsters in others because he was raised by one. Elena, he whispered, almost pleading, what do you want from me? I took a breath. Nothing, I said finally. I don't want anything from you anymore. He stared at me, and in his eyes, I saw something I hadn't expected. Regret. Real, raw regret. I turned away. For what it's worth, I said over my shoulder. I hope you figure out who you are without hurting anyone else. Then I walked away. And I didn't look back. 2 weeks later, the state investigation began. Inspectors raided Harold Reed's office. Documents were seized. Workers came forward with complaints. By the end of the month, Reed Construction lost 3 contracts. Harold was suspended pending a criminal investigation. Their company website shut down. Their finances were frozen. The Reed family's name, once a badge of honor, became a stain the town couldn't ignore. Their kingdom didn't just crack. It crumbled. And in the ruins, I found peace. Lucas never returned to school. Rumors said he'd been transferred to a different district. Some said his family moved away. Some said he dropped out. I didn't ask. I didn't care. Because his absence was not victory, but closure. The kind that healed the wounds he'd carved into me. Months later, at graduation, I stood on the stage holding my diploma. The principal smiled at me, genuinely this time. You showed remarkable courage this year, he said softly. You turned the truth into something powerful. I walked off the stage, sunlight pouring over me, my heart lighter than it had been in a long, long time. Naomi cheered. My mother cried. I laughed. And deep down, I knew one thing. I didn't destroy Lucas Reed. He destroyed himself. I simply gave the world a window to see it. People think revenge is about anger. But it's not. Revenge is about truth. About justice. About reclaiming what was taken from you. Sometimes, the ones who burned you think you'll stay ashes forever. But they forget something important. Ashes can rise. Ashes can rebuild. And ashes can burn hotter than any flame. I didn't set fire to Lucas's kingdom. I just handed him the match. And he lit it himself.